Welcome to a new daily top AskReddit video. Today's topic.
What's the most absurd fact that sounds fake but is actually true? Mazda has had the two most oddly specific product recalls in automotive history. They had to recall a bunch of Mazda 6s because spiders kept infesting the fuel lines. For whatever reason, this problem was limited to one model, and only one generation of that model. Spiders didn't fuck with any of their other cars. They had to recall a bunch of other cars because the infotainment system would break whenever users tried to listen to 94.9 KUOW radio in Seattle. It wasn't the wavelength, stations on 94.9 in other cities were totally fine. This problem was specific to KUOW. The issue with Mazda and KUOW was that the Mazda infotainment system couldn't handle an image file without a file extension, so instead of something like image.jpg, the file sent was just named image. KUOW sent the file via HD radio. Once the Mazda infotainment system loaded the misnamed file from the station, it got permanently stuck on that station and had to be replaced. Suffice to say, Mazda couldn't guarantee another radio station wouldn't do the same thing, so they had to recall the system. Test your file inputs, software peeps. It's just so wild though that only one radio station on the planet was uploading their files like that, and that only one car brand was affected. Out of all the animals in the world, the most successful hunter by far, with a stunning success rate of 95%, is the dragonfly. If those things were big enough, they'd be a viable threat to most other creatures. Look up Meganeuroptera, the predecessor of the dragonfly from the Carboniferous period. Its wingspan was around 3 feet. Edit, I meant Meganizoptera, misspelled in my remembering. These guys found this out while working at a vet clinic. A sloth takes so long to digest food that it can starve to death on a full stomach. Nature is just weird sometimes. Haha, that sounds like a terrible evolutionary hack. Evolution itself is a hack. We're all buggy. At one point, in Hawaii, you were more likely to get attacked by Ezra Miller than a shark. This is my favorite one. Did he move away, or stop attacking people? There's a species of jellyfish called Turritopsis dawni, also known as the immortal jellyfish. I had to Google the name lol, that can literally reverse its aging process. When it's injured, sick, or even just stressed, it reverts its cells back to their earliest form, essentially starting its life over again. It's like the creature figured out how to cheat death, hitting the reset button on its existence. Crazy IMO, feeling a wee bit stressed. Reverts back to baby. I'd be down for that. Boss hits me with a 8:30 performance review meeting and finds a newborn sitting at my cubicle. Jellyfish are one of the oldest if not the oldest animal on the planet. They have lived for 500 to 700 million years on the planet. I think they earned that cheat code through sheer grinding. Yeah, sadly it comes with the downside of having no brain, heart, blood or anything else. They're a bundle of floating nerves that react to stimuli. Immortal, but at what cost? Egypt is older than a lot of people realize. There were archaeologists in ancient Egypt. I think the fact was that Egypt has been around so long that they had archaeologists whose speciality was ancient Egyptian history. There was a museum in ancient Babylon. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/enegaldi-nanopercent27s_museum. Archaeological Survey realized they were looking at a museum when they found objects dated to 2,000 years apart and labeled. The way I heard was that Cleopatra lived closer in time to cell phones than she did to the age of the pyramids. Some people get shocked she lived during the same time late Roman Republic. Which is pretty ridiculous because the reason she is famous is because of her affairs with Caesar and Antonius and because she was last pharaoh of Egypt, which was then added as part of Roman Empire by Augustus. But this is partly due to Hollywood always having her in Rom costumes. She should be dressed like a Hellenistic monarch with some inspirations of the Greek goddesses. She was very Greek. She might have worn some Egyptian-inspired dress in religious ceremonies and Egyptian jewelry and such. She did not dress like ancient Egyptian-inspired Vegas girl. The one I like to say is that she lived closer to the opening of the first Pizza Hut location or the moon landing than the building of the Great Pyramids. Another good one is, T-Rex lived closer in time to Cleopatra than it did to Stegosaurus. Also, woolly mammoths still existed when the pyramids were built. There was even 600 years of overlap. Big Three Pyramids 2600 BC roughly https://www.wiki1.com/n/articles/great_pyramid_of_Giza. Woolies died out 2000 BC on an island north of Russia. https://www.wiki1.com/n/articles/wrangle_island #extinction_of_the_woolly_mammoth_presence. The only member of the rock band ZZ Top that didn't have a beard was the drummer. His name is Frank Beard. He lives in my neighborhood and he's a really nice guy. Used to let the Little League team play on his property. About 2/3 of your human ancestors are female. It's because of pedigree collapse, where you should have 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 GT grandparents, etc. So, going back about 30 generations, i.e., the Middle Ages, you should have 1 billion ancestors, which is more people than even existed. In reality, as you go back in your family tree, the same people start to appear multiple times. For example, anyone with any English blood will have King Edward I as an ancestor on dozens of separate lines because of his many children, including bastards. The flip side of this is that many more males than females leave no descendants at all. This is an interesting comment among many interesting comments. I want to know more. Thanks for being a fact enjoyer. Here's some further reading. https://archive.nytimes.com/tiernylab.blogs.nytimes.com/2007/09/005/the-missing-men-in-your-family-tree/. Sharks have been on the planet longer than trees. Yeah, sharks have been around for over 400 million years, while trees only showed up about 350 million years ago. Guess they really perfected the survival of the fittest thing. Sharks have also been around longer than Saturn's rings. And the advent of trees was one of the greatest ecological disasters ever. The CO2 in the atmosphere plunged because it was sequestered in wood and a global ice age was triggered. Life barely clung on. And this is why you didn't want to fuck around with the CO2 in the atmosphere. I've heard that a T-Rex is closer in history to humans than to a Stegosaurus. True. Dinosaurs roamed the planet for so long that Trex was walking on Stegosaurus fossils. There was a shipwreck in 1664, a shipwreck in 1785, and a shipwreck in 1820. Each had one survivor. Each survivor was named Hugh Williams. Was it the same Hugh Williams, and did he survive because he suffers from immortality? Hugh Williams was a jellyfish, obviously. Some companies are over 1,000 years old. 90% of them are in Japan. All the planets in the solar system, even Pluto, could fit between Earth and the Moon. When the Moon is in the farthest point in its orbit. Most of them can even fit in Uranus, but you really have to relax. I see a lot of octopus facts, but what I find most interesting besides their intelligence and hearts is that they only live about 3 years. They mate once and die. It's theorized that that's the reason they're just animals. If they had longer lives, it isn't unlikely that they would have evolved further and possibly became a sapient species. Do they live longer in captivity like other animals? I know they escape from captivity a bunch. Should we help the octopods live longer? Would this be humanity's downfall? Octopuses have 3 hearts, and 2 of them stop beating when they swim. It sounds like something made up for a sci-fi movie, but it's totally true. What's even crazier is that they're incredibly intelligent, like escape artists level smart, and can even use tools. Sometimes it feels like they're little aliens living in our oceans. Honestly, the ocean is so wild it's like the Earth's version of outer space. I visited the aquarium at the Mall of America in Minneapolis as a kid, and they had an octopus that was ridiculously smart. Our guide told us that when they were doing maintenance on his larger tank, they had put him in a temporary one in the break room area around the corner. They kept noticing water on the floor but nothing to explain it. One day the jar of peanut butter that sat on the counter across the break room was wide open and scraped clean. A trail of wet peanut butter tracks lead back to his tank. He'd figured out how to escape through the feeding flap on top of the locked lid, and had been trying to get to the peanut butter for days. Almost like they shouldn't be in captivity. It's a shame, and rather disquieting for the prospect of encountering an alien intelligence, that we eat them. I stopped serving octopus in my restaurant after watching a documentary on how intelligent they are some years ago. I don't sell soft-shell crab either because the prep process is brutal. You scoop the gills out with a spoon, snip their faces off with kitchen shears and then flash fry them alive. Honeybees can recognize human faces. Low-key terrifying knowing they remember who wronged them. They're out there keeping receipts. Honeybee. Crows do this too. I try to make friends with every crow I encounter. I never know when that will be paid back in kind. Lol. That cigarette lighters were invented before matches. In a related fact, it took around 50 years after the can was invented to invent the can opener. In the meantime, a hammer and chisel were used. A lighter is just an all-in-one tinder box, I guess. The last wild cow died in 1627. Wait, of course they used to be wild, but I never thought about it. Yeah, they were really impressive animals. The aurochs, the last one hunted in Poland in the 17th century, averaged 6 feet, about 2 meters, at the shoulder, with about a 1 meter span for the horns. That was the animal we domesticated cows from. I worked on dairy farms as a teen and went to plenty of agricultural fairs, and still do. I have never seen a bull that is 6 foot at the shoulder. That would be a terrifying monster. The atoms in your body are around 13 billion years old. They aren't yours, they've been here as long as life itself, you're just the latest assembly. The cosmos is within us. We are made of star stuff. We are a way for the universe to know itself. Carl Sagan. Bullshit, these are my fucking atoms. Why do I suddenly feel so grateful that these atoms picked me? Few mummies survived to the present day because people used to eat them. I just thought it was just because they're dead. Zevulon the Great, he's teriyaki style, and used them ground up as a pigment.